So working with variables is important. Let's have a look at the different ways how variables can be defined. To start with, you can simply define the variable in a play header using a vars section. Also, you can work with include files, and in the play header use vars_files. As an alternative, you can use a setFact module. Also on the command line, you can use -e key is value option, or you can use variables as inventory variables, and even as host or host group variables. And finally, there's also vars prompt, which you can use in a playbook to request values from the user while running the playbook. So with all these different ways of running variables, we need to have a clear idea of when to do what. Apart from the variables, there's also Ansible facts. Ansible facts are discovered variables, and they contain system properties. And there's Ansible Vault, which can be used to encrypt sensitive values like variables. Let's start by looking at variables that are defined in place. To define variables in place, you include a var section in the header of the play where the variables are needed. Variables are defined in place are only valid within the specific play, and they don't have a playbook scope. So if you need the same variable later on, you need to define it again, which is inconvenient. There is also vars files, which you can use in a play header to specify a list of files that include variables that you want to include. That is convenient if you want to manage the variables independently of the place that are using them. And to override variables that are specified in this way, you can use -e key is value command line option to specify these variables. We've already seen how to do that in the previous video. Let's have a look at a couple of examples. So let's have a look at a demo, the vars file demo. In this demo, we are using an include file for the variables. So it runs with the parameter getterFactsNo. getterFactsNo is recommended unless you really need your facts. Then I have a task install package mypackage, which is referring to a variable that we haven't seen yet. And likewise, Yum is installing this package according to the variable. So where does it come from? Well, apparently from myvars.yaml. So if we have a look at myvars.yaml, we can see my package and a couple of other variables defined in the key colon value style. Notice that you can also use the so-called ini style, in which you use key equals value. Now if we are going to run it, then we should see that it is installing the package according to the variable. So installing package nmap, here we can already see that the variable is substituted the right way. And there we go, this was this first playbook. Let's have a look at another way of using variables. So the second way of using variables that I'd like to discuss is by using setFact. setFact is a module, and you can use it anywhere in a play to set a variable. And variables that are set this way apply as a fact to the host on which it is set. That's something to consider. setFact relates the variable to the host that you are using in a play. The main benefit of setFact is that it allows you to dynamically set variables that are based on the result of any task in the playbook. We will see later in this course some advanced usage where setFact is dynamically defining variables. Also, a big benefit is that variables that are set with setFact have a playbook scope. There is one thing to realize though, and that is that variables that are defined using setFact apply to the host on which it is set. That means that they do have a playbook scope, but if in the next play you are using the same variable on a different host, it is not going to work. Let's go check out an example. So here we have setFact.yaml, which is a very simple playbook. On this simple playbook, we have the host localhost in two different places. So I'm using setFact, and setFact is just followed by a key value definition. Again, it is a module, so check in the Ansible doc how it works, but this is a simple usage. Next, debug is used to print the value of the variable myvar. And the key of using setFact is that then we get another play. In this other play, we run it on localhost and we check if the fact is still valid on my var, and we will see that that will be working. So let's run it, Ansible playbook, set underscore fact, and there we can see play number 1, the value is my value, play number 2, the value is my value. So setFact can be useful if you have a bigger playbook and you need to define variables that have a scope throughout the playbook. But do mind the hosts on which you are running it. Next, we should check out vars prompt. Vars prompt can be used in a play header to prompt users for a variable value that will have a scope within that play. By default, that variable will be flagged as private, which means that the user doesn't see anything while entering the variable. You can use private no in vars prompt to change this behavior if you want to. Let's go have a look. So here we have vars prompt. And in vars prompt you can see that it's running on localhost with the vars prompt name package. That's the variable that you are going to define. Then we have the prompt. Which package do you want to install? Private no, which allows the user to see the answer. I would always recommend using private no unless the user is working with really sensitive values. Here we have debug, and debug is checking the value of the variable just to see that it worked out. Then we have the additional play, and in the additional play we are demonstrating the scope of package. And I'm just doing that because I want you to be aware of the scope of variables. That is really something important to realize when working with variables. So let's run Ansible playbook on vars prompt. Which package? VS-FTPD, FTPS, whatever. It's the name of the package that matters. And there we can see the package is VS-FTPF. And the second play is telling us task includes an option with an undefined variable. And that's because of the scope of the variable that you set this way. So the last way of defining variables is by using inventory and host variables. So inventory as well as host variables are used to set a variable as a property for a specific host. At some point in time it was considered deprecated to set variables in inventory, but with the rise of Ansible Tower it has become common again, because in Ansible Tower in some cases it's just the best way to define your variables in inventory. We have seen that in the last lesson while we were managing Windows with Ansible Tower. Host variables is a different approach. In host variables, within the project directory, you create a directory with the name hostvars, and in that directory you create a file with the name of the current host. And in that file you define your variables. And likewise you can define host group variables by creating a file in the directory groupvars that has the name of a host group. So if you use groupvars/all, in the file all you define your variables, and these variables are automatically picked up. Now that is convenient, but at the same time it can be confusing, because the playbook itself does not need to refer to the host variables. So you might be surprised about where the variables exactly are coming from. And that's really something to consider. Variables can be defined in so many ways that it can be difficult to analyze and figure out where the variable is coming from. Let me demonstrate. So let me create a directory, mkdir group vars, and in this directory group vars I am creating a file with the name Rocky, and in that file Rocky I am defining user : Bob. So next I am going to create a playbook, create user YAML, and in that playbook we are going to include a name. Very important, hosts is set to Rocky because we need a match with the groupvars file, and then we define the tasks. And to avoid any pollution, I'm just making that a message, creating user. So notice that the user is defined nowhere in this playbook. And if we run the create user playbook, then this is what we get. So there we go, creating user Bob, creating user Bob. So that works out perfectly, but you do need to keep in mind where these variables are defined. All right, so now we have seen all the different ways that you can use to define your own variables. In the next video, you will learn about Ansible facts.